Growing up, Batman and Spider-Man were my two favorite comic book characters. Those are basically the only comic books I collected. I would pick up other things here and there if I saw Batman or Spider-Man were in them, like I would buy Justice League and whatnot. But I always gravitated towards the street level adventures of Batman. So we're going to talk about street level D&D today. I'm Tristan, this is Heroes and Homebrew. So when I talk about street level D&D, what I mean is low level, lower power D&D. These aren't world shaking events. This isn't one grand evil enemy that's trying to destroy the entire world. We're talking about a small group of bandits, say, that has a hideout in the mountains, or goblin raiders, and the party is just trying to help this town or city protect itself. Now it can be anything else. You could be a party of adventurers who are staying in one city that is keeping criminals at bay, like fighting different guilds, like assassins guilds or something like that. But it's not a grand epic adventure. Now, obviously this works a lot better when you're using lower level characters, say between levels 1 and 5. Depending on the game, that might be the point where, the tide turns. Now in 5e, you can't really do this. Even at first level, a first level character is going to be more powerful than a street level sort of adventuring. But in something like White Box or Basic Fantasy, those low level characters are not very high powered. They don't have a lot of hit points, and they're going to get beat up, possibly killed, possibly captured, but it creates a sort of tension and a grittiness when they're fighting lower level creatures or lower level enemies, or even villains. It's a good point to create interesting villains for this low level party. So characters like Batman or Spider-Man or Daredevil rarely come up against a threat that is threatening the world. I think a lot of campaigns and a lot of newer DMs think they need to create this big world-shaking event that's going to change the world, and the party has to, save it. That's not necessarily true. You can have very fulfilling adventures and very exciting adventures by keeping things very small in a contained area. And I find a lot of OSR games really lend themselves well to this style of play. What drew me to Batman was the fact that he was a normal guy. I mean, he was incredibly rich and very good condition. He had lots of gadgets. But when you think about it, a first level fighter, say in White Box, I'm using White Box as my example because that's what we're playing right now. A first level fighter in White Box is just a normal person, might have some things in his pack that'll help him in his adventure. He might have some iron spikes, he might have some ball bearings, things like that. But he's not all powerful. Doesn't have lots of magic that he can use. And so putting them on a grand adventure is not going to end well for them. At the same time, running street level adventures is very easy to do. You can run them over the course of 2-3 sessions. They can level up, they can gain some gold, they can gain some notoriety in the city or town where they are. And in time, as they level up, you can string these little adventures together almost like a comic book, where one thing leads into another, and you can harken back to an adventure that they had before, and you create this sort of timeline of where they're going. And as the party levels up, the villains that you've created for them can level up as well. And as they move from these street level adventures, in time the villains that they've been fighting, these reoccurring villains, can become more and more powerful, and their plans become more and more grandiose. Just like in comic books, there's no end. There's an end to the story arc, but there's no end to the comic book series. They have all different series, but the entire story of Batman never ends. even when you think it's ended, like they've killed off Bruce Wayne, he ends up coming back. So keeping these street level adventures, you can create sort of a comic book of your adventuring party through these small little adventures that are becoming linked, and you can have a coterie of villains that they fight against. It's something I thought about. I was thinking about comic books and whatnot, and I thought that would be kind of cool to keep things on a very small level, like 2-3 session arc, and have them sort of be like quote unquote superheroes without all the superpowers. Now, yes, Spider-Man has his superpowers, but again, he's generally portrayed as a teenage boy, even though recently recently, last decade or two, he's, you know, a grown man. But generally, when I was a kid reading Spider-Man, a lot of it was very still low level. He was working in New York City. He was fighting the Sinister Six, and it was, you know, the same thing. Someone from the Sinister Six would show up. They'd be trying to rob a bank or steal some weapon or something, and he would stop them, and that would be it. And then the next week or next month, it was a whole new adventure. Sometimes it was a 2-3 story arc, 2-3 issue story arc, and then it would start all over again. So I think, especially if you're starting off DMing, don't think about big epic plans. Think about what can this party do at a very low level, very low street level. You know, is there bandits on the road that you need to go and stop? And that's all you need to do. You know, if they stop bandits from keeping people from coming into the town, they're going to start becoming heroes in this town, and their wealth will grow, their legend will grow, and then they can start, you know, growing off from that. Maybe that bandit captain got away, and now he's going to become their villain, so to speak. So street level adventures, it's something that maybe you should think about including into your games, especially if you're starting a new game. Think about how can I keep this from getting blown out, from the story from getting away from me. It's going to allow you to roll with the punches of your party a lot easier too. As we all know, players have a tendency of just running away with the story, going off what you've had planned. If you have just a very simple sort of quest, very low level, very, you know, low stakes, even if they go off that beaten path, so to speak, you can roll with it a lot easier. So yeah, turn your adventuring party into a street level superhero adventuring party. Just like Batman right there. That's a Neil Adams print that I got at Comic-Con, signed by him. Very proud of it. Anyway, that's it for me. Save a seat for me at your table.